G'day, folks. That's it. We're back. The Detour Giro edition. We probably should have promoted this a little bit more, but we like to sort of go with the soft approach in case there is Wi-Fi issues, if his first signs of dementia are creeping in. But we've upped the stakes, Johnny. We've got Scotty McGrory on the panel. We've added a bit of gold to the show. Olympic gold medalist from Sydney 2000. Scooter, how are you travelling, mate?
Well, long-time listener, first-time caller. Thanks for having me on. No, I'm travelling well. Added a bit of gold to the show. You could say added a bit of bling to the show, of course. Bling, Michael Matthews writing the Giro d'Italia, which we'll talk about in a moment. Yep. But, I'm all ready. I'm one Grand Tour down for the year and ready for another one.
Well, Scotty, for people that don't know, Scotty and I go way back. We carved the road for Fox Sports News at the Tour de France and the Giro, and geez, all the memories come flooding back. And I went through the archive, Scooter, and I'm digging up some of these. Look at this sort of stuff. There's the final time trial there, and we've got our handyman Timmy Oliver, the builder, who we got over there to carry the bags. And then there was this famous protest stage. Do you remember this one?
In Milan, I remember it. I had a hangover the next day. That was quite extraordinary, wasn't it? So the riders protested because the circuit was so dangerous on that particular stage in Milan. There was traffic on the road, and it was legitimate, wasn't it, Dan? Because it was so dangerous for the riders. Cars, oncoming traffic, big, massive potholes all over the place, really dangerous. So they went really slow, which meant that the finish of the stage was going to be blown right out. So, of course, what do you do if it's going to be a late finish? You get on the bevies, don't you? So I had a few too many drinks, and there was some other fans that were sitting next to us, and they were egging us on and were telling stories. And you were in fine form as well, if I remember, Dan, telling stories. So I just threw down a few too many beers. Someone else had come up and said, "Oh, I want to shout you guys another beer." And I'm thinking, hang on a minute, I've still got to interview the riders after this stage. I'm feeling pretty secondhand. And I remember rushing over to Mark Cavendish, who eventually won the stage. They raced for, I think, maybe the final 30 kilometres flat out. And Mark Cavendish won the stage. And I remember going to him, and I couldn't remember actually saying it the way I did, but then you pointed it out when we went back before we sent it to Fox in Australia, that I actually started the interview by saying, Mark, a win nonetheless. What was it? No.
Interesting stage.
Interesting stage, but a win nonetheless. I was completely drunk, and we had to cut the question out.
That's right. But if you would be accustomed to being drunk at the Giro, wouldn't you?
No, only when I rode it, not when I was working on
it. Now, why is the Giro so good? Explain.
Well, what it is, we all know Tour de France is the biggest race in the world, and it's the most important, and it's all of that. But the bike riders themselves love the Giro. It's got the romanticism, and as we were talking earlier, the one thing, the fans of the Giro are really passionate cycling fans. They're not just there to watch the biggest sporting event in the world, annual sporting event in the world. They're there to watch a great bike race that they actually love, and that feeds through. You feel it everywhere you go, every town you stay in. The Italian people are much more switched on to cycling than the French, just on average. They all know all about it. Walk into a little bar anywhere, they're up to speed on everything. So it's just that feeling right through. Everywhere you go, you can just feel the love.
Now, feeling the love, we always encourage people to ask live questions. And, of course, first off the rank, Wendy Superfan. Hi, guys. Glad to have you all back. And Andrew Moore. How do you spell that last name?
Morn.
How do you pronounce it? Morn. Okay.
Yep.
Evening, guys. You're doing a live daily for the whole Giro. Yes, correct. We are back on board for the Giro. And Caroline Harbeck, she says the Giro has the best trophy. It's beautiful. Now, that's undisputed. I think Torino Adriatico, that golden pitchfork, is probably a close second. But and with the Giro, it always dishes up some amazing kits. You remember the kits from the Chippo days, Scooter, and a lot of talk has been with this EF kit straight off the ranks here. What's your take on it?
Well, it's different, and they're getting publicity, which is what the whole that's what pro sport's all about. It's pretty busy though. It's not in the sort of, I guess, the vein of what Chippo used to do. He was, even on the podium afterwards, he'd win a stage and then you'd go back and get changed into a cream suit and walk out onto the stage in a suit and tie. just to really get some extra publicity. He had some real flair. Hey, look, it's interesting. I like it. It looks a little bit messy. It's hard to read what the sponsors' names are, which is kind of defeats the purpose of sponsorship. But I think it's attractive. It's something different, and it's great. And just back to what you were saying there, John, about how passionate the cycling fans are for the Giro. I remember chatting to Adam Hansen, who's riding the Giro this year for Australia. A couple of years ago, when he was doing his 3 Grand Tours per season back to back and broke the record of the most consistent number of or consecutive number of Grand Tours back to back, which was just extraordinary. And I asked him the simple question: which tour is the best? Which one do you prefer to ride? And he didn't want to answer it at first. He felt he didn't want to upset any of the organisers of any of the races. And I said, well, okay, put it this way: if the Grand Tours were people, what personalities would they have? And
That's a good question.
Haven't heard that one before. Okay. And he jumped straight into it. Didn't even think about it. He said, Tour de France is a businessman. The Giro d'Italia is a passionate sports fan. And the Vuelta a España is a sports fan on holidays.
Yeah.
That sums up when you think about it.
It's true.
Spot on.
They always used to say the Vuelta is like the Tour de France with a hangover. Now, one comment that I was thinking about before is I like that it has Pluck a Duck on the front from Diesel Dave. That is true. When you look at the front of this jersey, that is Pluck a Duck.
Well, evidently, the Giro put a bit of pressure on the EF to change their jersey because of the pink, because of the crossover with the pink jersey. But Tour de France used to do that, but they stopped. They didn't seem to worry about Jumbo being in yellow this tour. So, anyway, that was the reason for the change, evidently, that pushed it.
I like that too. I like that as well. It goes back to Once when they were in yellow and they had to go to the pink jerseys. And I think Mercantoni Uno as well, in yellow jerseys, they had to go to pink when they went to the Tour de France as well. So that creates a bit of an opportunity for marketing, and that's what's happened with EF as well. So change the marketing.
But I wondered why they used to do that. But why did they let Jumbo go in their bright yellow this year in the Tour? They didn't seem to, obviously not worrying about it anymore.
No. Money. Probably just money. Jumbo probably just gave them some cash under the table.
And 2020, I reckon there's enough stuff to worry about where they're just like, file it under, who cares? Like, let's move on.
You know what? We've got some great bike racing to talk about, guys. We've done enough on that stupid bloody jersey. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Because not only is
that's quite an aggressive tone for episode 1, John.
Well, not only is the Giro starting in just a few hours, we've got tomorrow, we've got Liège-Bastogne-Liège, one of the monuments. So interesting time to be actually talking about a spring classic and the Giro, and we're in October.
Correct. And we've also got interviews coming up with Matt White and Brett Lancaster. He's got some great insights, particularly from 2005. But before we go to Whitey, I suppose looking at the preview, every year the Giro, they love dishing up these filthy courses. I don't understand in modern cycling. I get it's all about pushing the pain barriers and all that. But from an entertainment point of view, Scotty, should they cap the stages at 160K? Like, do we need to do these long 200K leg snappers?
Well, even longer, isn't it? So 240 kilometres is one of the final stages in that third week of the Giro this year, which is a flat stage. It's a brutal final week, as the Giro always is, yet the flat stage that's in between for the sprinters is 240 Ks. That's going to be leg snapping on its own when they're trying to recover for the final mountains and the final time trial on that last day for the GC guys. So it's interesting, isn't it? I felt like the Giro has always been the hardest of the three. It seems to have been the most mountainous, perhaps the most difficult, the longest transfers between stages, which adds to the fatigue, not in a positive way at all. And the Tours just had the best riders riding at their absolute peak, so it's faster. So therefore, you can debate what's harder to ride, harder course or harder race, because of the competitors are better. Tour de France this year changed that slightly because it was obviously a very brutal course and far more brutal than they've had for, I think, since 1979. The Giro, it's well known for being difficult. I've always been a little bit opposed to some of these dirt climbs. The Tour had one this year, was interesting, but Richie Porte punctured. That's the danger. It's spectacular to finish on a steep dirt hill, but it could cost someone the race when it shouldn't really. It's not cyclocross. It's not gravel racing. It's road racing. And there are enough steep, sealed roads for them to race up. So I don't quite understand why they throw in the dirt roads.
John, before we get your insights, mate, we've got a good insight here. Tim Parker, if he needs to change the Tour de France map behind him. Now, John, mate, get your stuff sorted. There you go. Perfect.
What Tour de France map are you talking about?
Well, what do you think of those longer stages?
I was a bit worried about the one in the middle, but it's gone now. Look, yeah, I just don't. I don't believe they should be capped at 160. I don't mind sneaking, a couple of stages over 200 over the whole period. And the Tour de France got it right this year. Fantastic. Only had one stage over the 200k, and I think the Giro's got about 5 stages over 200k or even more. So I just reckon it's over the top. It doesn't need to be. It's a really tough tour anyway, and especially this year after a Tour de France. I just don't think it's required.
Well,
you have to. Sport cycling is such about tradition as well, and the tradition has been long stages, and they keep getting shorter and shorter and shorter. So you need to find that balance between the tradition of the sport, which often has super long stages, but just where the sport is going as well. And in a season like this, which is so condensed, obviously very difficult to change stages once they've already been planned for the year, regardless of COVID. But yeah, it's trying to find that balance, isn't it, between modern cycling, having it a bit shorter, a bit more spectacular, and still having the tradition of fatigue that comes with those brutally long stages back to back. That's the way Grand Tours are. Everyone fatigues, and who's the strongest at the end comes away as the winner. We saw that at the Tour. We all thought Roglic was going to win, but no, this young kid was able to come through at the very end with that little bit of extra form. Had every stage been slightly shorter, Roglic may have still held on. So you've got to find that balance. And as for John and I, we're both race directors for events. We have to plan and organise stages around what our race needs, whether it's tourism or terrain for the racing. And that's a balance that you have to really try and think about all the time.
So look forward to the 250k Sun Tour Queen stage finishing up Arthur's Seat up on dirt.
280.
One thing, Scotty, we're known for on this show is tipping winners. Now, they're already firing in. Who are your tips for the Maglia Rosa? Now, let's have a look. I've dialed it up this year, mate, thanks to my mate Diesel Dave, and he's given us a bit of an odds board. This is who the punters think will win this year's Giro. Obviously, we've got Geraint Thomas on top. He's actually quite short. You've got Yatesy, Fool's Gang, Kreiswick. Let's start off with Geraint. Does he justify that short price, do you think? Start with you, Iffy.
Yeah, I think he does, because I think Simon Yates can win, but the challenge for him is the 3 time trials. So there's a fair bit of time trialing in it, and Geraint Thomas is one of the best in the world. I think those odds are pretty fair. If I was going to look at it and say who I think Kruzovic is probably a good odds there. They reckon his form is very good. I don't think Nibali can win.
Oh, so careful. No, never write him off. No.
He's gone. He's done used by date. Well gone. As far as winning, he'll go good in the last week. But Flusland, I like. My pick is Yatesy. I'm going to go with Yatesy. I think he's going to get enough. The really steep mountains, he will get enough time to withstand the final rush. But tonight is really important for him, because this downhill, almost all downhill, 15K, he could lose a good whack of time. Thomas could take 40, 45 seconds out of him in this, and he doesn't want that to happen. So he'll have to pull something out tonight.
Who are you tipping, Scotty?
Look, I think, Geraint certainly is the favourite. He won the Tour de France 2 years ago, second last year, and I think he would have won the Tour last year had that landslide not happened. The tactics of that day, everyone seems to forget. They sent Bernal up the road. He had to go over the climb, down the other side, through the valley to the base of the final climb, with everyone chasing with Geraint sitting on, so Geraint could just go whack on that final climb. That didn't happen, and Bernal ended up winning the Tour. So I think Geraint would have been back-to-back Tour wins had that not happened last year. So he has to be the favourite coming in. Obviously, the form early in the season for him has been a little bit up and down, but he seems like he's in pretty good shape. He wasn't too bad at the Worlds last week, good in the time trial. If there was someone that I thought outside of, a Mitchelton-Scott rider like Yates that I was hoping to come away maybe with the win, it would be Stefan Kruijswijk. If you go back a couple of years and think about how well he was riding at the Giro, and he crashed going over the top of one of the climbs just on the first or second corner in the snow.
2016, yeah.
2016, so nasty. That took him out when he was on good form. He injured earlier this year as well. So he's coming back from that. And he was on the podium at the Tour de France last year. So I've got a bit of a soft spot for Stefan Kruijswijk because I think he's tough as nails and he's had some bad luck in the past. So we'll have to see how he goes. Nibali, you're probably right, John. I think the lead-up form that Nibali has shown, you don't want to ride off someone that's won the Giro twice before and all 3 Grand Tours, but he just doesn't seem to be the Nibs of old. So we'll wait and see, but I just don't think he's going to have it right at the pointy end.
I think he is the Nibs of old, the old Nibs.
All right, well, as we mentioned, we caught up with Matt White a little bit earlier. He's the first of 3 parts of that interview earlier today.
So we have Matthew White, DS of Mitchelton-Scott. I think everyone knows you, mate, who listens to our show because you're on every day for the last 3 weeks on the Tour de France. But here we are in sunny Sicily. I know that I was flying over with my mate to join you guys in Budapest, where the Giro was supposed to start. Of course, that all ran amok with the whole COVID thing. So you're down in wonderful Sicily, and you're saying that it's very windy there, mate.
Yeah, it is. It's been we've been here since Wednesday, and the weather's been beautiful. Certainly like summer weather. And overnight, big change has come in. Just wind. It's 30, 40 kilometre an hour winds, but really hot African winds. So in northern Italy at the moment, there's even been a bit of snow and cooler temperatures. But I woke up this morning at 7 a.m. and it was 30 plus degrees and blowing about 40 kilometre an hour winds. So it's going to make the today's time trial quite interesting, to say the least.
It's a different downhill time trial. I mean, there's going to be some monster average speeds going on here. Are you expecting a few big gaps as well?
Yeah, I think there'll be some decent gaps. I've never seen a time trial like this in the last 25 years. So it's 1 kilometre uphill and then basically downhill for another 14 kilometres. The first part is very, very straight descent, which the guys will be going, I don't know, maybe 90 kilometres an hour. Then to two S-bends or two 180-degree turns. And then you continue down into the city of Palermo. And the rest of the course is all through the city. And then you've got a couple of rights and lefts in the city. But the average speed, I would think, would be 60 kilometres an hour plus. It's one for the record books, that's for sure.
So this would be I was going to say this would be a big challenge for you've got Simon Yates, who we all believe is one of the red hot favourites and a big chance to win this Giro. But this stage, normally you wouldn't even worry about it, but at the time, especially on someone like Geraint Thomas, he could really lose 30 seconds or something, couldn't he?
Yeah, we're going to lose time today, that's for sure. He could lose up to someone like Ghana. Might lose a minute, but I think as we get away with 30 second loss today, I think that'll be a successful day on Geraint. And then I think as far as the other time trial guys go, Fuglsang could be slightly better, Kruijswijk could be slightly better, but we should take a slight bit of time on maybe on Nibali and a couple of the others, Maker. It's. We know we're going to lose time over the 3 time trials, but we've got 3,500 k and 40,000 meters of climbing over the next 3 weeks. So it's one day at a time, but today is certainly about limiting our losses.
Now, there was a few people saying, there's no Aussies in your squad for the Tour de France, but geez, you made up for it at the Giro. You've got 5 with mostly H's: Hepburn, Hamilton, Hausen, Haig, and Cam Meyer. How are the Aussie boys travelling?
Yeah, really good, really good. And the other statistic here as well is besides Italy, there is the second most represented nation at the Giro is Australian. There's 18 Australians here, and that's a record. And we've got 5 of them, like we said. It's a great group, and a lot of these boys have been here before with me in the Giro. And the only one who in our team who hasn't been to the Giro is our Italian, Edoardo Affini, and he's obviously very excited to compete in his first Grand Tour with a potential winner. And we're really looking forward to getting this race underway this afternoon.
What's the tucker been like, mate? Let's get to the important stuff. Obviously, the Giro, best for the food. You get your passionate hotel owners. They come around and fill you up until you barf. What's the pasta been like?
Yeah, look, I've had more pasta since I arrived on Wednesday than I have all year. That's lunch and dinner. We had some great Sicilian cannolis for dessert the other night. And Sicilian wine, it's not talked about too much, but if you like a big hearty red, you can't go too far wrong with the Sicilian red either.
That was part one of our chat with Whitey. I can tell you get raged out when I just keep asking these irrelevant, stupid questions about food that you're wanting to go in about the race stuff.
I wanted to add a little bit before, because when you showed that photo of the protest day with you and Scotty standing there, I noticed
this one.
Yeah, you look like you'd given it a good nudge over the couple of days there, mate.
Oh, jeez. That's the pot calling the kettle black. All right, here's part two. What about those palms and wheels? Are they banned those in the COVID environment, or?
They have. Buffets in general are banned for us, although we are staying at a hotel on the beach here, and I see that the buffets are still all the go for the general public. But you are getting served the food from people at the hotel. So the general public's not getting their mitts on the tongs and the other apparel. But we've got our own chef for the guys, and then we have a separate eating area for all of us. But surprisingly, Italy's one of the best countries in Europe for the moment for COVID cases. I don't understand how. I know obviously they had a big scare. Obviously in March and April, there was nearly 1,000 people a day dying in April, and I think that a lot of the tourists, when Europe did reopen in summer, there went to Spain, and that's why Spain's had such an issue post lockdown. Whereas in Italy, the numbers are really good. So it's we pulled it off in France last month, and that's the plan this month. We've got to be diligent, obviously, with at the hotels and when we're out and about, but nothing that wearing masks and a lot of extra care with hygiene will certainly help.
I got to tell you, I miss not being in Sicily. The seafood pastas in Sicily are to die for. The best seafood of any place, I reckon.
Yeah, we had a good prawn risotto yesterday for lunch, John. Very nice.
Missed that.
Before we let you go, we're chatting to Brett Lancaster, and he said there might be a bit of concern about the weather in the last week, given that the race has obviously shifted to later in the year. Is that something that is going to play into tactics at all?
I don't think tactics. I think some people perform better in the cooler weather than others. Look, I spoke to someone this morning today. I think it's going to be a maximum of 13 degrees in Milan, and that's Milan's not high. So there was last weekend when I was looking at the weather for here, they were predicting 33, 34 degrees here at the start in Sicily, and it had started snowing on the Stelvio. So from the south of Italy to the north of Italy, it is a long, long way. It's like comparing Melbourne weather to nearly Brisbane weather. But look, there's also a long time before we are in northern Italy. We're not there for another nearly 2 weeks. So the better the weather being a bit average now, because it will affect the race. But I think the difference is when we go through there in May, you've had months of snowfall and snow walls. So sometimes it does get a bit tricky to clear. So anything that happens now in the next couple of weeks, it'll be easily maintained. And Jonesy, the Italians, they love a bit of drama, and the show will go on. I'm pretty sure the show will go on regardless.
Is that same bloke run the show at the Giro? That short little guy, bald, angry.
Yeah.
He's the one that ripped you guys because John couldn't do his job as the security guard for Michael Matthews in 2014. Remember when he was late?
That is correct. Yeah, we did when we didn't get Blinn onto the start line on the first row in the Maglia Rosa. Yeah, that's right. That's the one.
That's the one. All right. Well, when you see him, pass on my Cheerios, because I'll never forget the day that he high-fived Nibali when they won the Giro that year, and Esteban unfortunately ran second. But yeah, I wanted to throttle him. So anyway, say good day.
Oh, we'll do. We'll pass on our regards. No, it's going to be interesting. I think Nibali hasn't won a Grand Tour since in 2016, but he's always going to be a threat in the last week. A lot of riding between now and the last week, but yeah, the old Shark of Messina, he's on home turf. He's going to be a dangerous one.
Before we go to part 3, it was interesting what he was saying about the COVID not being as bad in Italy, because it sounds like Europe as a whole, like they're on the verge of a second wave, like particularly in parts of Spain and stuff. And just getting off topic, like I still can't believe. Oh, I can't believe that Trump's gone positive for COVID, but that's like if Trump beats COVID and he comes out and he says, "See, told you, there's nothing to worry about. Like, let's open us back up." But if it goes obviously pear-shaped, then yeah, that's going to have a massive effect on the election.
He's in hospital now, so and evidently he isn't real well. Seriously, with his age, and he's not a healthy person anyway, I reckon he's going to be pretty sick, actually.
Mate, he'd brush his teeth with bloody Zinger burgers. Like, he just fed off KFC and Macca's, and that can't be good for COVID.
They tell me he's actually trying some some new methods.
Bleach up the butt.
Yes, at the moment he's trying them all, evidently.
Some light, some external light that we can perhaps put inside the body, through injection.
We shouldn't. I mean, forget about the politics of it. The guy's sick, and you wouldn't wish that on anyone to get coronavirus.
Correct,
but because it's obviously an insidious disease. So let's hope we all can get through it. But it's interesting, as you were saying, we did touch on something serious there. The fact that Italy is managing the second sort of wave much better. And I think it's because they lost so many people, the elderly, whereas a lot of people in Australia say, oh, well, it's only the elderly. But the Italians are really close with their grandparents and parents. They're the family unit, and it would have been absolutely crushing to lose so many of their really wonderful senior citizens, and they're taking it serious now. They've been great with the masks and things like that, and the rest of Holland's getting a really serious wave now, much more serious than they got the first time. Spain's in serious trouble, and France is in serious trouble.
It's going to be interesting how it all pans out.
It may be, everyone's probably just a little bit nervous now, but to have the Giro for the Italians, as you said, John, it was so difficult for them and for the people we know that were living in that area. And Darren McQuaid, who now is the general manager of the Mitchelton-Scott team, he was locked down in Bergamo, and during that time, he said it was like the land of the zombies. People were petrified to go outside out of fear of catching the disease. They want to celebrate something. They want to have sport. They want something they can follow, but of course they want to do it in a safe environment. So yeah, it's a country that certainly was hit hard, and they want to celebrate something. Let's just hope, fingers crossed, that we can get through the Giro like we did the Tour without any side effects. Whitey, he touched on the weather then. Now, it's the 3rd of October. Stage 18, 22nd of October. Just think about how many weeks we've got to go. We're getting then close really into the winter months. That's the day they go up the Stelvio. And the Stelvio is 2,746 metres. They finish at the top, so they're not going to go over the top and then down the other side, which can be worse. But that's a stage that could be in danger of being shortened if there is too much snow that day. Yeah. But then you go to the penultimate stage, so that's the 25th of October, and they go to 2,700 metres again into the French Alps. They go up the Col d'Izoard, which is 2,300, and then they finish up Cestarière at 2,000 metres deep into the heart of the French Alps on the border of France and Italy on the 25th of October. That stage may not even be completed, so we'll just have to wait and see.
But as Whitey said, it's not formed snow. They'll just sweep it off the roads. Should be.
We've got to remember, seriously, normally the Giro's in May, and often when you get a late change, that gets stopped with snow just the same because it's so early in the year. So you can get it either way. We'll take it as it comes, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
And
right,
the Tour of Southland in New Zealand gets stopped with snow every second or third year as well. So even the big races like the Tour of Southland get affected.
Yeah, that's right. Here's our final part with our chat with Matt White.
Well, they're talking about the Tour de France, just how brutal the final week was. It's pretty brutal, the final week of this one too.
Yeah. Look, the difference is in the kilometres and the altitude. We've got in the last week here, we have 4 mountain stages, a 255 kilometre dead flat stage, and a TT. That's the last week. So there's some days there. We've got some early starts here in the Giro this year because obviously it's October and we're running out of light. So I think there's some. I looked at the program. There's some mornings there where we'll be leaving the hotel at 7:30, 7:45 in the morning, and not expected back at the hotel till 8:30 at night. So the Giro's a special race, and you've certainly got to be able to switch on and off because there's some pretty long days for riders and staff. And the kilometres, the differences between the Giro and the Tour is the length of the stages. I think there's eight or 9 stages over 200 kilometres here, where there was only 1 at the Tour de France. And a 225 kilometre stage in the mountains, you're staring down the barrel of 6 to 6.5 hours. And then I don't know the longest stage in the Tour, but it was nowhere near that.
I find that there's no doubt the Tour de France is the biggest event in cycling. It's the most important event for all the teams, most prestigious. To win a stage in the Tour de France is the highlight of many people's careers. But bike riders en masse seem to love the Giro. It's more romantic. There is more of a passion for the event by the riders themselves. That's still the case?
For sure, Johnny. I think the Tour de France is our global event where everyone in the world knows about the Tour, whereas the Giro, it's obviously very, very prestigious in the world of cycling. It's definitely getting more global recognition, and it's a different fan base because I think the Tour, in this traditional window of July, there's a lot of people on holidays in France, and people come to see the spectacle, and they're not necessarily fans of cycling. They're close. They want to see the world's biggest sporting event pass them. Whereas the fans in the Giro, they're a little bit more passionate, and they're more cycling fans. The Italians obviously are very proud of their event, but the fans who come and watch they're real cycling nuts, and it is a different feel. Whereas, and like you spoke before, Jonesy, about the hotel owners, that when you're staying at a hotel here in the Giro, the people are really proud to have Giro teams staying at their hotel, especially when you get into the smaller hotels where they're family owned and you have one or 2 teams at a hotel. Whereas at the Tour, you don't get that same feel. No,
at the Tour, they want you to piss off. At the Tour, they dish up offal, and it's like sabotage.
Yeah, they're just working their shift. Mate. Whereas there's a different pride from Italians about this race.
For sure. Way better food.
All right.
Well, all the best, Whitey.
Thanks heaps, bud.
Thanks for joining us.
No worries, guys. Today's about limiting our losses, and then we go on the attack starting tomorrow.
There you go. That was our chat with Matt White. Now, before we delve into some more Giro preview stuff, and we've got obviously the chat with Brett Lancaster coming up, let's have a quick cheerio for our sponsors. John, this is where you've really come to the forefront, mate.
Well, Mitchelton Wines is one of our great partners in cycling, of course, and that's the Mitchelton Hotel on the banks of the beautiful Goulburn River in the Gambie.
Did you get up there?
I was up there. I called in. They had a meal there over the weekend. I'm going there to stay for 3 days for Kay's birthday. We just put that off for a couple of weeks until everything to the perfect time. But it's just a beautiful spot, and wonderful Mitchelton wines, and there's a most beautiful downstairs in the cellar, the most amazing Aboriginal art gallery. It's one of the best in the world.
Did you get your boat out on the river?
I did. I got it out in the lake and the river.
Remember when you used to be big? Everyone said it looked like the old 60s version of Batman when the penguin gets away. Like his little
I used to be nearly as big as you, Dan, once upon a time. Yeah.
No, I think you would have taken the cake, mate. Come on. Tell
I
the
took
truth.
every
You're
bit of cake I walked past.
You're the same weight, but you're a foot shorter. So that all factors into it. Now, here's a quick word from... Oh,
take
sorry,
a poll
Scotty.
on that. Put it up on tomorrow's show, on the next show, and take a poll. Show some old photos when you guys were at your most grand.
Oh, I was over 100. I don't know if you got over 100, did Dan? You got over
Me?
the century? Yeah.
I only got under 100 about 3 weeks ago.
Oh, well, it's a decent competition.
I remember at your 40th, Scotty, I remember being at a bar and Benny going, if he pulled me aside and he said, mate, we need to have a talk. And this is when John was big. And he said, mate, I've got to tell you, but you're getting fat. And I was like, what? And he goes, you're fat. You're single and you're fat. And they're the worst combinations. So
anyway. I was being brutally honest. And he did something about it.
That's right. I owe it all to you, John. You're a bloody inspiration, mate. All right,
kick some goals.
Here's a quick word from our great mates at Bike Exchange.
Look at this bike. You think it's just a bike, right? But it's not. It's a bike. 374 people are looking at. This guy, this girl, them, all looking at it. People from here, there, and wherever this is. People that are looking for a bike. Or just a piece of it. Amateurs, semi-amateurs, and pro-amateurs. This guy wants this bike, but with this crank and these bars. This could be the perfect match. But not this one. This girl has a bike to sell, and thousands of people might purchase it. Eyes on Bikes help grow small businesses. His, hers, yours, and the latest data and insights help those businesses keep moving. We are the world's #1 bike marketplace, with over 500,000 products and 900 brands, where buyers and sellers are brought together in a place where a bike is never just a bike. Bike Exchange, where the world buys, sells, learns, and rides.
I love that ad. Over 500,000 products.
Great ad, great company. If you need a bike, you know where to go. Bike Exchange, where the world rides. Now, keep firing in your questions and comments. Old Strawny, he says, Dan, do you think they created the prologue of the Giro with an eye on you taking the start? The stage appears to be all about momentum. Now, talking about weight, John, if you were 100 kegs, you'd be half a sniff, wouldn't you?
Exactly, mate. Exactly. I remember when the Giro I rode, I was about 6 kg overweight when it started, and I think I was about 3 kg under my best weight when it finished. So there you go. It's a good weight.
Scooter, if you were selected with the Mape squad back in the day to start a Giro like that, would you almost carb load and just add on a bit extra beef, just solely looking at the time trial?
No, you still want to go in as lean as you possibly can. But I was still fairly heavy. I was low 70s at my peak. This would have been a stage, and I'm not a time trial, I never was, but this would be one that I'd have a crack at for sure. It is interesting, isn't it? Because Ghana will be the favourite, the world time trial champion, no doubt, in Italy, an Italian, in the rainbow jersey, stage 1, with the favourite to take the Maglia Rosa as the winner of the stage. So it's a dream for him to have a time trial like this. But it sort of unsettles the overall classification riders, doesn't it? Because Geraint Thomas, he will also be very much in the mix for this time trial. And then for someone like Simon Yates, he knows he's going to lose time. And you've got to have a good head on your shoulders going in, knowing you're going to be starting from behind, right from stage 1. But look, stage 3, they've got Mount Etna, so everything's going to change after 3 days anyway.
Yeah, that carbo loading wouldn't last very long if you got Mount Etna on stage 3. But I reckon Ghana will win. I don't think anyone will get within 20 seconds of him in this.
Well, Rowan Dennis will obviously have a crack, but Ghana's the man on form, isn't he?
Yep.
Well, here's the odds for stage 1. We might as well do our picks now. We usually save it to the end, but because we're in the zone, we'll mix it up. Ghana, $1.40. Red hot. Campanards $6. Rowan Dennis $6.50. Geraint Thomas not bad for $12 there, Johnny.
Not bad. I think Rowan will probably run second. So I reckon he's those odds are probably pretty right on where they'll finish. But Ghana, as you can see by how short those odds are, it's just his virtually made for him. You'd think he was Italian. Oh, he is. That's right. Sorry.
But
But
anything
Geraint
can
Thomas-
happen in these TTs, like anything.
Oh, well,
Remember the year
saw
we
what
were there,
happened with-
Scotty, that penultimate day when Denny Menchoff, like that is a classic story going into the last day, and he was, red hot favourite. I can't remember what the time gaps were, but remember the Italian media when Menchoff slid out with, what was it, a K to go?
Oh, inside a kilometre to go. It was wet roads, cobblestones, coming to the Colosseum, and they did one final loop around the Colosseum to the finish. He had a comfortable lead from memory, close to 2 minutes, I think was his lead. And he was going pretty well in the time trial. It was Danilo De Luca, who was
That's
the Italian in second place, the notorious De Luca. And Menchoff just threw it down the road. I think it was about 800 metres to go. Wet cobbles just went straight down the road at warp speed. And the Italian press, just after the finish line where we were standing, just went berserk. They thought that De Luca was now going to win the Giro. And there was one of the guys, there was these marquees they had set up in the rain, and one journalist was holding the leg of the marquee and just shaking it, screaming, "Bellissimo! Bellissimo! Bellissimo!" And then the mechanic burst out of the team car for Rabobank for Menchoff, had the spare bike off the roof straight to him, got him back up again, boom, gone. It was an incredibly quick change. And all those Italians that were screaming in delight suddenly realised, oh, yeah, that's right. He had about 2 minutes to play with. Oh, bugger.
Yeah. And remember when Menchoff finished, and we were standing right there, and he threw the helmet off onto the ground and just screamed like a wrestler.
Yep.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
And you were right in there, because that was one thing that that you were great at, Dan, when we were doing those post-stage reports and getting in there for the footage. You were always first in the scrum. It was your old footy days from down in Sale, getting in the pack, and you could just get straight in there. Often, sometimes a little bit too close in the pack, and the camera lens may have smacked a couple of cyclists in the head that were quite emotional at the time.
That's right. Remember I clipped one rider. There was one rider at the finish there that I accidentally hit in the head, but my hand was sticking out, so I could put the hand back in, and he didn't know who it was.
Yeah,
I
I think the rider was, I think it was on Mont Ventoux at the Tour de France. His name
That's right.
Lance Armstrong.
Exactly. It was Lance, and then he lost it. He lost it at that American guy. He thought he did it.
Yeah. And it was you.
Well, Joe, I've got some old classic photos, Scotty. Now that you mentioned Lance, like we did a really good job back in the days at asking all the hard questions. Like we knew something was up, so we were not afraid of asking him all those prickly ones, eh?
No, we didn't ask him any of those, because if we did, he wouldn't have spoken to us and we would have lost our job. We, as many of us in the media, you've got to say, it's not our fault, but of course we did enable the Lance myth to continue, because we wouldn't ask him those questions. And there was a stage, for example, at the Tour Down Under, when I went over to interview him, and he called me over. He was in his car about to leave, had the window down, and he's, yeah, okay, Scott, come on over. And I went to interview him, and then the window went up and he drove off. I thought,
that's right.
Hang on, what the hell's he done there? And yeah, you and I were like, what, huh? He asked me to come over. And then once we all sort of dispersed a couple of minutes later, the media manager came over and said, hey, Scott, that wasn't because of you. That was because of the other journalist that was coming. And there was another journalist that was legitimate. And he was
proper journo.
Yeah, he was actually going to ask the drug questions, and as he always does. And Lance won't talk to him. So because he was over our shoulder, Lance was out of there. Yeah.
But then what that did is it enabled us to fight Lance's battles. So we'd go to that journal and go, mate, what are you doing? We're trying to do our job here. Like we're essentially going, we're trying to do an average job. You're trying to do a proper job, but let us do it, Unbelievable. And then I found this I found this other cracking photo at the tour. We worked out pretty quick that, hey, we don't need to be at the starts. By the time we send this vision back to Australia, the race is run and done, because Fox Sports News didn't go live till 6. So we thought, well, what are we going to do with all our time pre-race? So we decided to just go go-karting. So remember, every stage we went on a go-karting tour of France. And my old man was on the trip with us. This was the year, I think this was 2010 maybe. But I think the year Emu come with us, like he wasn't happy because he wanted to watch the race. And this was us after Cadell won the tour. And I started crying because you did the final interview with Cuddles. And, he wasn't happy because we weren't at the race. But anyway, good times.
Oh, mate, we were jumping on, checking what chateaus are nearby that we need to stand in front of to do my crosses, do all this good stuff, where the stage goes, what are the scenic points, and are there any, high-end go-kart tracks nearby? They were the important things every day. And where we're going to have lunch. We need to know where we're going to have lunch, of course.
That's right. And then Johnny would always ring us. We go, John, what's the buffet like at the press centre? Mate, best
ever.
Best ever. Seriously, get here because it's all starting to go. And you get there and there'd be like a tipped over table. There'd be napkins everywhere. You'd be lucky to get like a little half-bitten bit of cheese.
Because you were too late. You were too busy doing go-karts, but you should have been eating the good food.
Yeah, well, anyway. Before we go into sort of the sprinters and so forth, we had a really good chat with Brett Lancaster, and he's part one of that chat earlier today. Righto, we're joined by very special guests, better known as Brett from Shep. Bert, how's life with you at the moment, mate?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Dan. I'm in Maastricht at the moment, just preparing for Liège, best on Liège tomorrow, and busy, under the pump a bit, just de-icing on my own here, but yeah, it's all under control, and in with a chance tomorrow with Kwiatkowski.
Geez, it's been a weird year. I mean, we're talking about Liège and we're in October. How's this shuffle around been for you, given that you're on the logistics side of things as well, being a DS?
Oh, it's been a long year, of course. We've been under the pump also in lockdown preparing for this block. Dave keeps us busy, so it's been a long year. Can't wait till it's all over, to be fair.
Now, Bert, I'll jump in here because, Dan, because he's mates of yours, he just introduces you, Brett from Shep, all of that. But you are director sportif with the biggest team in the world, Ineos Grenadiers. Which is just an amazing job to have. You're looking after the classics section right now, which is, so you had Flesh Alone the other day, which is a fantastic race. And now tomorrow, as you see, it's strange. We're talking about the Liège, best on Liège on day 2 of the Giro. It's just a weird and wonderful world.
Yeah, well, we've got the right weather for it tomorrow. Actually, it's 25, 30 km/h winds from the south and light drizzle, wind chill of 5. So it's going to be interesting. It's real classics weather, I guess. But yeah, we've got the Giro on. Also, the Vuelta starting soon. So we've got to run triple programs at the moment. So for every team, and we're, like I said, one of the biggest teams. But logistically, it's an absolute nightmare.
Well, I also left out your Olympic gold medalist, and you forgot to mention that, Iffy. But anyway, I still know him as Brett from Shep. We had plenty of good days back in the day at the Green Edge team. Hey, what's been the wash-up from the Tour de France, mate? Obviously, a little bit disappointing for you guys going in as one of the favourites. What have been the takeaways from the tour?
Yeah, I guess it wasn't the best tour for us in ways. I think we've learnt a lot from it as well. Maybe it was the timing. Like some guys going very well very early. Your Pacifikovs and everything, who we depended a lot in the race, and obviously crashed that first day. Never was himself after that. And we saw on the back foot from the start. I guess that last week, Kwiatkowski and Carapaz sort of saved it for us. It wasn't all bad, but we've taken a lot away from it, and hopefully we can plan like a normal year next year.
Now, we want to bring the mood up now.
Hang on. Before we go any further, I'm going to tell you a very sad story about that wonderful stage that your Ineos guys got 1 and 2. And I actually, before the start, where I was doing our picks every day, and, I got about 5 right. But anyway, and I actually said to Dan, told him to back Kwiatkowski.
You've got to move on, mate. He
will win. And he backed him. We were going to win $900, and he chickened out halfway through the bet and cancelled the bet halfway through the stage.
No.
Now, what sort of guy does that?
Hey,
Robbie
McEwen said in the stage, Kwiatkowski switches off, his job's done, so I blame McEwen. John, you need to let that go, okay? You need to stop bringing that up. I regret it. I blame McEwen. You know the story. Like, mate, it's done. We'll make plenty more money back on this Giro.
It was an expensive stage win for them, though, wasn't it? First and second, I think between the two of them was like €4 million they were getting paid. And that was all they got out of the tour. And it cost them €4 million to get that stage, first and second.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at the fuel that they've got to win this year's Giro. That's why Geraint Thomas is the red-hot favourite as well. Here's part 2 with our chat with Brett, and he recaps on a pretty special edition from 2005. But I want to bring the mood up, mate. The Giro's about to start. You've obviously got fond memories. Now, we've got a segment that we call the Detour DeLorean, where we flash back to the old great memories from years past, and here's a little sting.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Now, I want to play a little snippet from the backstage pass we did in 2014 when you guys won the team time trial, but it was your section when you were reflecting on taking the pink jersey.
I rode my first Giro when I was 23 years old for an Italian team, a smaller Italian team. I did the first 4 years of my career with them. That team had been running for probably 20 odd years, and the history behind it, and to feel the warmth of an Italian team, what the Giro meant to me, and I lived in Italy for quite a big chunk of my life. So that was 2003. I broke through and won a pink jersey in the really short prologue down in Reggio Calabria, 2005, and that was one of the biggest highlights in my career. It was only a short stage, but the passion and everything in the team hotel when I got back, and like I said, this team had been running for 25 years, and they'd never had a pink jersey in their team, and I was the first to do it for them. An young Aussie guy in their Italian team, and those memories I'll never forget, and I still see the managers to this day, and their smile on their face when I see them at the Giro. They still thank me for that.
But I've got to ask, when the Giro starts, does it stir up all these great emotions of memories like that?
It does. Actually funny, Luke Rowe sent me a WhatsApp the other day with a link to the time trial. I haven't really seen it in full for probably 10, 15 years. So it did bring back memories, and it was a reminder the Giro's about to start. And we've got a couple of good guys in this team that are banging on door to win that first stage.
And one thing that must piss you off, though, is Chippo. I mean, look at this photo. Like, he's jumped on and stole your show,
stole me
mate.
thunder, mate. Yeah, it was pretty average, wasn't it?
I remember that. I do remember that. But you was touched, that was an amazing day. And it was only 1 kilometre that time trial. It's the shortest prologue, I think, of all time. And I remember thinking beforehand, you got to be joking, a 1K prologue. But it was such an amazing day. It was an absolutely brilliant stage.
Yeah, they say, like in Italy, that Reggio Calabria is the nicest stretch of beach or waterfront in Europe. That's their claim to it, anyway. But it was pretty special, and at night time as well. So good memories. And actually, the funny thing is that my colleague now, another DS, come on with us a couple of years ago. It's Matteo Tozzato, and he actually finished second to me. So he always remind him of that all the time. To be fair.
and what was that? What was that like, Bert, when you pulled on the pink jersey? It must have been one of your career highlights for sure.
Yeah, I know. It was a strange stage. It was 1.1K, but it was. Yeah, I never forget that. Got the jersey at the old man's house back at Shepparton, hang up on the wall. He looks at it every day. I think he's pretty proud of that. So eventually, when I move back to Australia, I'll hang it on my wall too.
Good stuff, mate. And also, you've got.
I was going to say, I remember, I think it was the end of that tour or the next one. I'm not sure, where we ended up having a party up in the mountains behind your place with you and Brownie, and I had Kay actually over there, unusual, a couple of my kids, and we had a Spanish dancers party and a sing along. Remember that?
Yeah, that was a pretty nice night actually, in the valley just up above Pistoia. Yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, there was so many great days over the years. I mean, one of the highlights for me was when we used to buy those fireworks in Girona. I think we did a little video. Here's the last bit of just before we were going to the Tour de France.
Tour de France, here we come.
Mate, that was awesome.
Those were the days, mate. Actually, just that wasn't too long ago. I had my son in the park across the road doing the same thing. You know, nothing's really changed.
Do you make it back in time for the Fire Festival this year in G-Town?
I don't think it'll be on this year, to be fair, mate. Everything's been cancelled, unfortunately. The Flower Festival, etc. So
yeah, right.
Yeah, it's groups of 5. It can only down to 5 or 6 people we can meet now. So they're pretty tight with restrictions. But at least we can get out and kids are at school, which is the main thing.
Before we get to the part 3, yeah, they were great times. Like Spain in general, it was awesome living there because they have rules to a certain point, and then they get to the tipping point. And they just say, "You'll be right. You'll sort itself out." And this fire festival, it was like running of the bulls of fireworks. They'd have 4 or 5 guys dressed as a devil, just fireworks going off. We'll get Weendog on the show later in the week because he's at the Giro, and I dragged him to one of these ones. And at one point, he lifted this guy up with fireworks going everywhere, and he got like fireworks in the back of his shirt, burn holes all through it. But it's just another world over there. And Brett was awesome. Like he was always into because growing up in the country, he was always up for sort of mischief or, going out and always dropping a rod and fishing and just loved it, old Bert. But yeah, he's the last part of our chat with Brett Lancaster. And the talking I saw, they might even have to cancel Paris-Roubaix. Has there been any updates with how some of the classics are going to be affected?
Yeah, look, the Dutch government's come on pretty strong and said no sporting events, amateur or professional. So they've cancelled Amstel, of course. But I think if anyone get over the line of the ASO, they're pretty well connected, with the government. They could probably pull a few strings and hopefully Roubaix still go ahead.
Mm. Oh, well, all the best with Liège, mate. Have you got anything you want to add, Iffy, before we let Bert go?
Yeah, well, because, this is our first detour back. We're going to be covering all of the Tour de France. But, Liège, Bastogne-Liège.
Cover all the Giro, mate.
Sorry, Giro. What did I say? Sorry, mate. Dementia, a bit of dementia. But, the Liège, Bastogne-Liège is one of the 5 monuments of cycling. So what do you reckon is going to happen tomorrow? Because it's a wonderful race.
Good question. I mean, there's a lot of guys in form carrying form from the tour. It's going well, like one of our Kwiatkowski. I think it's a big headwind on the way out and a howling 25, 30K headwind all the way back. So it's going to be super fast. You're going to have to be well positioned into all those climbs and wet, so bike handling skills will come into it. Yeah, so I think Kwiato the other day in Flesh had one of his top results he's had there. It's not suited to him. So, yeah, of course I'm going to be going for him and got a good little team. Froome flew in yesterday and wants to do a job deep into the race. So we've got a lot of motivation and some good young riders as well.
Alaphilippe, he'd have to be the red hot favourite, wouldn't he?
Yeah, but he's a bit of a party boy here, and he went pretty deep after he won the Worlds. So that's the word on the street.
You mentioned Froome. That's a really interesting one. So how's his form coming up? Because I know he's setting himself for the Vuelta. So how's he looking?
Yeah, look, he obviously wants to finish with us with a nice result. He just flew in from Andorra. He's just done a block up there at altitude. He looks fantastic. He's very calm and relaxed. Obviously that huge accident, and it'd be a miracle for him to turn that round within just over a year. But yeah, he's motivated, chilled, happy. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, fantastic
good stuff, mate. Well, all the best, and hopefully. You've got some pretty good results there for a big day tomorrow. As if you said, one of the 5 monuments. So it's a big day.
Yep. Right, boys.
And we'll be in touch. We've got 3 weeks of the Giro to go. I know we want to have a chat with you again. So work out a day when you're very relaxed, and we'll get you on live.
I'm up here all the way to Roubaix, so long time. 5 weeks on the road I'll be.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I'll wait until we can flash back to that stage when you almost belted 3 or 4 guys in the Palo and Durbo did the timeout signal. We could deep dive into that day.
Who's your tip for today anyway, guys?
Oh, well, geez, the odds board, there's not much value, mate. Let's have a look here. Ghana, $1.40.
Yeah, and I can't see. There's something. It's downhill, 15K. I mean, I can't see anyone beating him actually. But I reckon your man Geraint Thomas is a big chance for this event overall.
He's in good nick and in a real good place. He's a bit of a kick up the arse, not getting to start in the tour, and he's really on it, So
Simon Yates
and a good team behind him too,
Yeah, well, Simon's is a big chance, but there's a lot of time trialing, which probably doesn't suit him quite as much. He's going to have to put a bit of a gap in some of those big mountains. But gee, it's a hard final 2 weeks, really, but a hard final week. Talking about Tour de France, this is just bloody tough.
Yeah, and also, given it's up the north of Italy, I can't see all the stages going ahead. There's already snow on a lot of those big mountain passes. So I think it'd be a big thing for guys to gain time early and then possible cancellation of stages or keeping it at a low altitude where there's below the snow line. So only time will tell, and it's going to be an interesting Giro.
For sure. Oh, well, we'll check in again with you soon, Bert. Thanks for joining us on the detour, mate, and all the best tomorrow.
See you, fellas.
Thanks, bud. See you, mate.
Brett Lancaster, absolute legend. Now, keep any comments rolling in. Jason from the Maldives, the Giro, as a fan, offers much greater access and food. Not going to argue there. Wendy, superfan. Hi, Brett. Sorry, Wendy, that wasn't a live interview, but we'll definitely pass that on. And Michael Albacini, we're on LinkedIn now, boys. He says, hey, Jonesy, how are you? Yeah, good, Alba. How are you going, mate? Great ride again at Flesh the other day. I think he's done Flesh 17 times or something. Absolute legend, old Alba. Now, boys, sprinters. You've got Gaviria, Demar, Sagan, Viviani, Bling. Who do you think we're going to be looking out for on the flattest stages?
That's an interesting one. I think Viviani will be desperate to turn things around. He hasn't won a race this year, so that is staggering for him and his new team. So I reckon he'll be in the mix. Sagan, don't you worry about Peter Sagan. I will bear my bum if he doesn't win a stage in this Giro. And remembering,
we're not going to hold you to that.
it's his first ever Giro, Peter Sagan, which is amazing. Is it? Yeah.
Scotty, do you reckon Sagan could potentially be like, remember Tor Hushoff when he signed that massive deal and he was really good when he was at Garmin, then he went across the BMC and then he got a slight cases of the CBF. Do you reckon maybe that might be creeping in with Sagan?
I think 2020, that's what's happened for Sagan, right? We saw it earlier in the year. So I think he'll be back. Don't worry about him. He's so talented. He is driven. But this season has just really upset his routine and his rhythm. We saw it when riders were doing Zwift competitions earlier, and they were asking Peter to do them as well. And he came out and said, no, I do real races. And then eventually he had to turn out and do some Zwift races because his sponsors are saying, well, hang on a minute, we're paying you millions of dollars, buddy. You better give some publicity this year. So he reluctantly did them. I think he's the sort of guy that really does need a normal season. He's not as motivated as some of these other guys in an upside-down year like this. But now he's got the Tour de France in his legs. He's a guy with incredible talent. Could you imagine, like most people would be happy with, even though he didn't win a stage at the Tour, but just the way he rode through that Tour was better than so many of the other riders, and he wasn't at his best. So that kind of conditioning that he got from the Tour will make sure that he does very well in the Giro. He has come to the Giro because they're paying him lots of money. He's had to sacrifice the classics because of that. So I think there's a fair amount of responsibility that he's put on himself to do well in the Giro because they're paying him as a professional, not just his team, but obviously the organisers to have him there.
Are the organisers paying him extra to ride the Giro?
They are. So they're paying him extra to be there. That's why he's come. And that's why he's gone into the Tour slightly underdone, knowing that he has to do 2 Grand Tours. Yeah.
When that deal was done, to be fair, when that deal was done, the Giro was going to be in May. So he was going to do that, probably taper off towards the end, but Tour de France was still the main issue. It's turned around the other way. Look, he wasn't that far bad in the Tour de France. Seriously, the stage he got rubbed out in, if we don't talk about too many ifs, but he gets through that gap without... No, but seriously, he would have won that. He would have beaten Caleb by half a length. He was coming. He still only lost by about 2 inches after running into Van Aert, bumping him out of the way and coming through. He lost it by a smidgen. So he wins that.
If, mate,
I'm just saying. That's true. He ran second and they rubbed him out. So that cost him the points that he lost the jersey by. Maybe a bit more.
I agree with you.
No, he was right in Yeah, no, I did too.
And he did give up the fight. He did not give up the fight for Green. Like he could have packed it in when he knew he couldn't win it.
He made it a great battle. He made the green jersey really valuable this year by making Bennett race all the way into Paris for it. So it was a wonderful effort from Sagan.
Look out for, I think Sagan will be good, but Arnaud Demar, he was a bit stiff, and we understand why he didn't ride the Tour de France. It was all for Thibaut Pinot, his team. Obviously,
that worked out well.
No, exactly. So that's obviously in hindsight a mistake. When they made the decision before the Tour started, I, for one, thought, you know what, you're talking about a guy that's not the favourite to win the Tour. If he doesn't fire, you've got nothing. And that's exactly what happened with that team. Thibaut didn't fire. They had nothing. Demar was the best sprinter in the couple of weeks leading up to it. Not just super fast, but he won the Tour of Wallonie, which is a hard race. He won the overall.
Yeah.
He was really stiff to not go to the Tour. It might be a case for him, though, that his form was so good earlier that he might not be back on form for the Giro, but I hope he can come away with a stage win or two, because I think his team really stuffed up by not taking him to the Tour in the first place.
And what about Bling, Iffy?
I was just going to say, and Michael Matthews. Michael Matthews is in fantastic form. He's riding the Worlds was, really first class. A seventh when the big hitters are all on the front doing everything. He's only just behind them, won the kick in. So I would be staggered if Michael doesn't win at least one stage, could be more. And he'll give the sprinters jersey a real shake.
I think, just to clarify on that, John, he came in the second group. Great ride. Because it was the second group, I put him in second class. First class are all the boys up the front. Great ride. He's won a few stages before in the Giro. He's focusing on it. He's coming here with good form. So I think he certainly is going to be in the mix. Viviani, as you said, is already looking for redemption. Alvaro Hodge, the Colombian that rides for Taconic Quickstep, another one that's certainly going to be in the mix. And you've already mentioned Gaviria. They're all going to be there. We just don't know which is going to be the standout, which one of those is going to be the Sam Bennett or the Caleb Ewan that are head and shoulders above all the other sprinters. We'll have to wait and see after a couple of days.
One other point that was interesting, I did the social distance podcast with Bills and George Bennett the other day, and George was saying what's mentally cooking a lot of riders at this point is you're in October. Normally, there's 2 weeks to go and that's it, season done. And they're really struggling now to go like the mental side of, hang on, I should be finished. And even that period leading up that was obviously the COVID lockdown, a lot of these guys were taking massive pay cuts. Like some teams were 70% off the salary. So they had all that stress. And I reckon probably this next 3 or 4 weeks is really going to test a lot of the riders that are already sort of on the rivet a bit, not just physically but mentally.
Yeah, and you've got guys that have ridden the Tour and now coming in, to ride the Giro. So Tony Martin's another one. There's a few others that are doubling up. That's pretty tough. That's extraordinarily tough. The gap between the two races is shorter than it normally is if it's earlier in the season for the Giro into the Tour. That's got to play on them as well. Just the exhaustion of that. And as much as everyone was happy to see the racing get underway again, a lot of guys, I guess, by this point are just over it. They just want to start 2021. So it's going to be a real mental battle to see who's there in the third week with enough courage and enough, I guess, in their belly to still go for wins.
Yep.
That's all true, and that's what people are saying. But we haven't seen that in the racing. There's been none of that sort of reaction in the racing. The racing has been as good as I've ever seen, and they haven't shown that at all. The World Championship was a ripper. Tour de France is one of the best I've ever seen. The Classics last week, wonderful flash. I reckon the Liège tomorrow will be another ripper. So we haven't seen that in the racing. So I'm looking forward to a Giro. I just wish the stages weren't quite so long. It probably will give a bit of an opportunity for them to relax a bit. But we only saw one stage in the whole Tour de France where they sort of did a bit of piano for quite a while. Every other day was on. Just fantastic.
Yeah. Well, and if there is a protest stage, we can just get on the cans, Scotty. So it's all good.
Absolutely. Done it before. We know how it works. So do we think that of the Aussies that are riding, so 18 Aussies, but do we think that Michael Matthews is the best chance for stage wins? I think Rowan Dennis maybe in the time trials Jack Haig, perhaps in the mountains, is probably our best chance with Simon
He's,
Clark.
I think his only chance for Hagee is if Simon Yates either blows or just completely off GC, and then they say, all right, we'll go for the opportunities in the last week. Otherwise, he's going to have to just work for him. Unless he's there in the final. But, yeah, I'd say his chances are gone. And he's leaving the team as well. So, why'd he be like, well, mate, stick your bloody individual chances.
I reckon. I'll tell you who I reckon will go well in some of those intermediate stages when the brakes get up the road. Nathan Haas. I reckon he needs a stage win in a big event like this, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him get up the road and be dangerous in a stage.
Yep. And Adam Hansen, it's his last. Will this be his last race for the team? I think I saw an article he's going to be focusing on the Ironman.
Look, he hasn't got a contract for next year. He's put it up. He's going to definitely concentrate on Ironman next year. He would be prepared to stay with a pro World Tour team if they were prepared to do a program around that. And the way some teams like an EF think, they might look at someone like that. Oh, he's not a youngster anymore.
He's a really smart dude too, Scotty?
He is, yeah. Makes his own shoes. Anyone that doesn't know that, he makes his own shoes. They're incredible, unbelievably light. And he is a thinker. He has a lot of real estate in the Czech Republic where he lives as well. And he stays in the Czech Republic for most of the time through the winter. So you can imagine how much home trainer riding he does. The lockdown probably didn't affect him at all.
We need to get him on the show, and when we do, if he, we'll just chat to him for financial advice. Maybe manage all their books.
Absolutely. Hey, John, you just mentioned EF as a team that might look at him because they're willing to do things outside of the normal professional racing, which made me think of Lockie Morton. And I spoke to his team director, Tom Southam, last year. And I like Lockie. I've known him for a while in the family. And they were connected with the Drapac team that I worked with years ago. And I said, how's Lockie going? And this is last year before the Vuelta a España. And he said, well, look, he hasn't really made the teams for the Grand Tours. So it's been a bit of a challenge for us to, still keep him in the mix within the team. And he made it sound like, his contract's under threat because he's not making that top 8 that goes to the big tours. Great to see him at the Giro this year. That's the first thing. But he started doing the big gravel rides, the big gravel races, the endurance things, real ultra endurance stuff. And the Dirty Kansas, the 160-mile gravel race in America, was one in particular that he did last year. And the video that Rafa did for that particular race, featuring Lockie, had more reach than the video they did for Bettiol, who won the Tour of Flanders for them last year.
Wow.
So that made the team think, hang on a minute, we've got a guy that won one of the monuments, and yet Lockie got more coverage with this new demographic of audience, this new customer that's come into cycling. So those gravel races basically kept Lockie's contract going. And so it's good to see him at the Giro because he is a good rider. He's more than just a gravel rider. But it's interesting. There's a whole new demographic of fans out there that are interested in the sport, but it's from a different angle.
And that's what sponsors have got to really think about. You got to think outside the box. Like off topic, like they've announced this NBL team, the Jack Jumpers, right? And a mate of mine goes, "Oh, did you hear about the new team, the Jack Jumpers?" I said, "Mate, it is genius. It's such an average name that everyone's talking about it. Everyone knows about this Tasmanian basketball team, the Jack Jumpers. If they had called themselves the Devils, they'd be like, oh, yeah, it's just another team. Yeah, the Devils. I go for the Jack Jumpers now. Let's go. Let's win the chip." So I think it's good. Hey, Ben Jensen has broken some news. BWS still not stocking Mitchelton. John, you're going to have to express that comment straight to Jerry.
No, I don't think Jerry's a big fan. Actually, I think that's part of they discount the Jerry's not into. So he's not into.
Why discount a great product? Why sell it cheap?
Is that the same for Dan Murphy's? Mitchelton not in Dan Murphy's?
I think they are, but they don't discount. Not a discount rate.
They're definitely not in those barrels when you first walk in the store. The clean
know.
skins.
I'm just saying that I have no idea why it's not there.
All right,
Some probably said the wrong thing.
You get online and just order it online anyway.
Yeah, exactly. We're getting
go up to Mitchelton to the most beautiful wine cellar and buy it and have a beautiful day on the Goulburn.
Exactly.
Hey, what about we've got time to talk about the because we have a photo of Mitchelton.
We got no time limit here. We've got no time limit.
Great. The tower. Have you spoken about the roof of the tower at the winery, John?
The tower?
Yeah, so there's the tower.
I don't know if I've spoken about it the last couple of times. It is amazing. You get up there. There's a level where if you took I'm putting my finger. You can't see my finger on there, which is all enclosed, and that's like a viewing area with a restaurant as well. I don't think there's anymore. And above that is the viewing area, which you can just see because it's quite flatlands around there. You can see for miles all the way into the Strathbogie hills around the back. It's absolutely sensational cycling country around there too.
Well, it's. I mentioned the tower not because it's just a blatant plug, but and correct me if I'm off with the figures here, John. You might know the story, but the previous owners, which I think may have been Lion Nathan, the big brewery that bought the winery from the original owner, and the shingles on the roof, the tiles on the roof, were in disrepair. And there was a conversation about how much it would cost to repair the roof. And I think it was something like $800,000 to repair the roof. And they thought, well, that's just crazy. Just bulldoze it. This is a big multinational brewing company. They didn't really care. Just bulldoze the tower. So then they looked at the price to bulldoze it, and it was more expensive.
Double the price.
It was like double the price. Yeah. So they thought, well, okay, we'll repair it. So without that, we wouldn't have this incredible tower, which is the iconic part of Mitchelton Winery. And it was only because it was cheaper to keep it than to demolish it. Crazy.
Crazy story. Yeah. And crazy but true, as they say.
And nothing to do with the Giro, but anyway.
No. What were we talking about? I think that pretty much wraps up the Giro preview, lads. Monster show. It was great catching up with Brett and Whitey and Scotty. Thanks for joining the panel, mate. We'd love to have you on as much as you're willing to jump on. So
whenever you can, mate. We'd love to have you.
Yeah. No pressure. No pressure. The fans want it, but
if we get more than 3 people say they want me back on, I'll do it. So 18 Australians in the tour, which is quite incredible off the back of the 2 that we had at the Tour de France. Obviously, the 2 we had, Caleb and Richie, did pretty bloody well.
Well, let's quickly run down through them. So we've got Mitchelton-Scott have got 5 with Lucas Hamilton, Jack Haig, Michael Hepburn, Cameron Meyer, Damien Howson. And then Sunweb have got Michael Matthews, Chris Hamilton and Joe Hindley. EF have got Simon Clark, James Whelan, Lockie Morton, James Whelan, who, a pretty good climber, remember in the Tour of Tassie a couple of years ago, can go. EF, we've got that. Rowan Dennis, Miles Scottson, Adam Hansen, Dylan Sunderland, Nathan Haas, Chris Harper, and Ben O'Connor. So, a pretty impressive group. And as Whitey said, the second most after Italy were the number one nation
represented country
in the Giro. Yes.
Yeah, pretty good. We've had 16 Aussies that have won stages. That's not including the team time trials. So individual stages, including Brett's 1.1K time trial from 2005. And it goes right back to obviously, to Michael Wilson, the first stage winner of the Giro for us, 1982. And 3 of Michael Wilson, Phil Anderson, Alan Piper, the first 3 Australians to win stages in the Giro d'Italia, 3 of my absolute heroes growing up as a kid. So great to see those names represented.
Man, I should have won one in 81, but they ran me. Right. But anyway.
Sound like bloody Baden Cook.
Isn't that the 12 cog? If they'd given you a 12, you would have won the stage. But now you have 13.
Scotty, we're going to have to lock you in for tomorrow night. Cheryl, yes to having Scott back. Sally,
thanks, sir.
Let's have Scotty back. And, of course, Wendy Superfan, yes, we want you on the show, Scott. So that's
all
it.
Right. I'm back in tomorrow night.
Thanks, and another one. It's just non-stop. Determined 34, Scott vote as well. Mate, they've gone ballistic. So, well done, mate.
I saw
Great debut.
I saw Scotty tapping away there. I reckon Scott set one of those himself. But anyway.
Yeah.
Those burner accounts. Anyway, thanks for joining the panel. Thanks for tuning in. If you want to get involved, it's facebook.com/Detour Pod. Search for us on YouTube. We're on LinkedIn now. Tell your mates, get behind it, subscribe. And we'll be live every night, 7:30 for the Giro. And if you've got any suggestions, we've got a pretty good Rolodex, Iffy, for contacts and yourself as well, Scotty, for the rest of the Giro. We'll just try and get as many people on the show as we can. And let's have a lot of fun. So good luck for tonight's stage for, obviously, Yatesy. Hopefully he doesn't lose too much time. And it's going to be an absolute cracker of an edition.
And go Pies!
You had to fit. Sorry, folks. Sorry. We'll see you tomorrow, 7:30.
So go Saints. Hey, Jerry will be very happy the Saints come home.
All right, mate.